talk about the cooperative synergy in the rainforest, something that you know very well. Tell us about the Amazonian rainforest.
Yeah, what I enjoyed about this park that really touches my heart, where I've spent many years, and we not only are there a series of endangered species and endangered animals, but at the beginning of 1900s there was an estimated 2 million people living in the rainforest, and now we're looking at 200,000. So talk about an endangered species. Again, this is a commonality, our species and other species being threatened. But the rainforest, as a piece of geography, the biodiversity there is like an extraordinary concentration of life on our planet. There's more species of plants and animals in 2 acres of Peruvian rainforest than there is in the rest of North America. More species of fish in the Amazon than all the world's oceans combined. And getting integrated with that life energy and that life force is really important. And I bring up a little example, like the first time I really got upriver in a motorized dugout canoe for a couple of days and step off into the forest with a couple of Shipibo Indians, and you really recognize the force of nature. The triple canopy rainforest, things living and dying at your feet, being consumed by something else, this entire ecosystem. And then you also realize that you're not at the top of the food chain anymore. Things will take you out for nutritional content. And as you spend a couple of days, it's raining all the time, you're always wet, and things begin to grow and colonize, on your clothes and on your skin. So we realize that we're just a part of this huge biodiversity, and that's really important. And then you look around that rainforest and you think about maybe what we had for breakfast today. If we had coffee, sugar, oranges, bananas, everything there originated in the Amazon rainforest and was not easily available until recently. So we recognize the value, and this is really all about a revaluation of nature. And we assign a value to something, then we begin to protect it and integrate with it.
It was very interesting because in forest, Dr. Sanjayan approached part of the tributaries with trepidation because he didn't know what sort of reaction he was going to get from the human beings that were there. And you've encountered all sorts of experiences there. But you've been driven by something much more important, which is the harvesting of botanicals, which means the world's wellness, health and wellness. What got you interested in that?
Well, that's the valuation part. Well, my personal interest came because I had a very specific experience with that, with Rocky Mountain spotted fever and hepatitis, and it was these botanicals that really turned my life around. So I recognize personally a value in that. And the other things of value in the rainforest, not only the botanicals, 100,000 species of plants in there, millions of species of insects, but from a wellness perspective, almost a fourth of all your pharmaceuticals are based on footprints of nature that come from the Amazon rainforest. So there's a huge wellness benefit there. Other benefits of the rainforest, think about things like oxygen, our relationship with plants. We breathe in oxygen, we give back carbon dioxide. The plants breathe in the carbon dioxide, give us back oxygen. That's a good deal. And so we want to appreciate that, value that. Furthermore, the plants will hold carbon. As we're giving back, they take in the carbon dioxide. They are a store of carbon. So when we clear rainforest, we're not only taking away species of plants that may hold a very key value for a lot of our degenerative health issues, but we're also eliminating a source of oxygen that we depend on, and we're also helping to redistribute the carbon that's stored in those plants as those go down. I think eco-commerce is a wonderful new model emerging for this integration back into nature and a revaluation of nature. For example, when we're able to bring something from a living rainforest, so it assigns a greater value to a live rainforest than a deforested rainforest, and that goes into commerce, and people receive a benefit from that, say the wellness benefits of the botanicals, then that spins back a benefit to the rainforest, to the conservation efforts, to the continuation of that benefit. And once you have that cycle going, then it's not dependent on essentially a welfare or a nonprofit. It's a commerce model, and it will continue, beyond our lifetimes. And that's what I particularly look forward to.
That's great. Perfect. So, John, you've seen Earth connecting humans to nature, something that many of us think we've lost touch with. You've had decades of experience in the Amazon rainforest. You, more than any other person in the environmental movement, know the beauty and the value of life in the rainforest. Tell us about that and how important it is.
Well, it's extraordinarily important, and I like the idea that Dr. Sanjayan brings up the point and a new awareness about kind of where we are historically as far as how we as a human species interface with our habitat, plants, animals, insects, and other species, because over the years that has changed and evolved, and I think we're at a very special place in that relationship right now. For example, say 300 or 400 years ago, 50% of the population of Earth made their living in agriculture. It was all about growing food or distributing food, marketing food. 50% of the population were engaged in that, so it was a real connection with the Earth. And look at where we are now with the Industrial Revolution and the technology, been able to grow food. Only 2% of the world's population is connected to that. And I enjoyed an article I just read. They were interviewing a little girl that grew up in New York City, and they asked her, well, where does milk come from? And, right, the obvious answer, we're thinking cows. And she thought for a minute and said, room service. And that's, for a certain segment of the population, that's become their reality. So as this evolution has gone on, where as a culture and a society, we've delegated the responsibility of food to fewer and fewer people, and the technology has allowed that to sustain us. It's created a segregation from nature. And so as a result of that and the efficiency of that, then our population has really exploded. From 1970 to now, the population of our planet has doubled. In a tiny, 50 years, the population has doubled, 3.5 billion, 7 billion human beings. And so now, geographically, we're pushing the boundaries. So we know the boundaries of the wild animals, the wild habitat have been more and more compressed, and the animals have sought refuge into more and more remote areas. And now we're pushing into those remote areas and having a confrontation, in many cases, with animals, like in the example of within India with elephants. We've encroached into their land and planted crops, and they're coming out for those crops. There's not a lot of place to come out to as that compression happens. Also with the tigers and the relationship of people with tigers in India. So I think we've reached a very critical point of awareness of a reintegration with our understanding of nature.
Let's talk about the cooperative synergy in something you know very well, which is the Amazonian hosting a show called Earth, A New Wellness.
Well, Nancy, I'm happy to fit in, to play a role, as a conduit, as a piece in the chain, anything I can do to support this whole idea and a wellness solution and positive outcome. I'm happy to participate.
How do you see Earth, A New Wild affecting us, and do you see hope? Is there future optimism here?
Oh yeah, well I do see hope, and I'm really glad that Dr. Sanjayan and the PBS documentary really brings forward the idea that we are at a particular stage, and as human beings, normally we'll make a change when the continuation of our species tends to be threatened. Right. We get very smart very quick, and we make those changes. And so I think we're at that kind of a crisis point now when we look and we see what's happening with the oxygen, what's happening with our climate, what's happening with species, what's happening with degenerative health in the world, and our absolute essential that we take access to these natural botanicals in the rainforest that can turn things around, in my opinion. So we are at a wonderful place of opportunity where we see a circle of healing. Mm-hmm. And working with indigenous groups, for example, in the rainforests, and helping them with, rights or deeds or title to the land so they feel secure on the land, then they will take care of the land and the species that are there. And the value orientation is we see the value of oxygen, the value of the holding of carbon of the rainforest, and the health and wellness value of the botanicals in the rainforest far exceed their mineral content or the wood composition of what's there. So as that value orientation comes through, which is what I think Dr. Sanjayan is really pointing out, we, the dominant species, make those decisions. And as we value that and the revaluation occurs, then our integration back into nature, being able to explore those benefits and at the same time put a conservation benefit back so we continue to have access to that, this is a critical time.